Hey kids, it's Jurassic James, and on this Jurassic James Slates looking at Jurassic World Dominion. Uh, a subscriber named Miss Mimi asked me to talk about the movie, and I realized I had not done anything about the movie. I just mentioned it during my reviews, and so I'll tell you this: I saw the movie when it came out a year ago, and I have not seen it since, which is a sign, I guess, to me that how I view about it. I mean, again, I have nothing like horrible to say about the movie, but I'll say this. Okay, so they mentioned that there are 30 dinosaurs in the movie. I think they mean 30. I initially thought 30 species, so I got everything I knew was in the last movie, and I had 28. But I'm thinking they may have meant 30, as in like there's an adult and baby Triceratops, an adult baby raptor. So maybe that's it. I don't know. But anyway, so I'll start from the beginning. Oh, this is a spoiler review if you didn't figure that out by the subject title. So first and foremost, I want to point out the thing that uh, I'm no Neil deGrasse Tyson. You know, he goes around and like picks holes in movies and stuff and makes sure they're accurate and all that. For me, it's I'm pretty laid back. I think a lot of times when it comes to some of these things here and there. But when it's something very like, for example, I spent my entire career telling children that the megalodon did not live with T Rex, and then the Meg 2 trailer comes out and it shows a megalodon killing a T Rex. Like that makes me angry. It's like, well, great, now that's another decade of my life. But in this situation with Jurassic Park, I mean, obviously the animals are going to be modified genetically, they're different, it's storytelling, I get all that. I will start with the opening, the prologue, which was not in the movie, it was actually released online. And it shows the story between the T Rex and Giganotosaurus and their connection. I will say that when I did get kind of, not mad, I was annoyed by that because it shows, well, first of all, T Rex is Tyrannosaurus Rex is a indicator. So if you see that animal, you were in North America between 68 and 65 million years ago, right? That's just where you are. And they showed Tyrannosaurus Rex, and they also had, oh my goodness, did I not get the Ankylosaurus? Yes, I did not. Luckily, they're right here. So that makes 29 on my list. I'm still missing one species. I'm not sure what's going on there. Or, no, anyway. So they show the Ankylosaurus, which is a Tyrannosaurus Rex contemporary. Instead of showing Triceratops in that opening sequence, they showed Nocitriceratops, which is actually from it's late Cretaceous as well, but it's a different stage. And so think about it like decades. There's like the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. But within the 90s, there's like the early 90s and late 90s. And then within that, you have the actual years, 95, 96. In the Cretaceous period, there's the early late Cretaceous, and also there's subdivisions. So T Rex and Ankylosaurus and Triceratops lived in the late Cretaceous, a very end Cretaceous called the Maastrichtian. And that's 68, well, 75 million years ago, 65 million years ago. And so having these two there and this guy there would have made sense. The Triceratops is earlier than that, around older than 70 million years old. So they're not in the same spot. If you want to know more about this, just the link to this below, geologic timescale, JurassicJames.com, and I have all the species broken down by, like you click on Cretaceous, you'll see them all, like North America this time, Asia this time, like that. So if you want to know more about that, there. Uh, so that was one thing, and they showed the Quest of Koalas in that environment, which is good because Quest of Koalas is an Darkid that's found in that same environment and time. So I'm like, that's good. But then they showed the Giganotosaurus. Now we would have had Alamosaurus, another Titanosaur in North America, not Giganotosaurus. Plus Giganotosaurus is older, and of course Giganotosaurus is both older and South America. Actually, both Giganotosaurus and Giganotosaurus are South American species. So that was off, right? And for me, the big deal is, of course, if you're going to say this is the actual time, this is the period these animals are living in their environment, and you mix species again, you're like, well, I understand on the island because you're just making genetic creatures and putting them together, but this is, you're saying we're back in time. Last thing to point out too with that sequence, they have a little dinosaur here, the Moros. This guy is a little older than T Rex, like it's a Tyrannosaur, a distant cousin, and it's the one they show eating. Like the Giganotosaurus' mouth is open, it's eating the like bugs out of it. I like the idea of them having the idea of this ecological connection. We know many birds pick food out of like crocodiles' mouths, kind of thing. So that was kind of neat. But these guys again did live together, different time from space. Just North America, of course, but not when T Rex lived. It was even earlier than that, right? And then last month, there was an Oviraptor there, and they never specified what species it was, but they did make a toy. Only two species there are no Jurassic World toys of that were seen in the movie, or the Oviraptor. And I'm going to use this little guy. I'm going to use this little guy as an example of a Microceratops. There's a ceratopsian in the Malta scene. But other than that, they have toys of everything else that you see in the movie. Currently, kind of like, if not recently on for sale. So that happened. I will say that the one thing that I guess made me mad is in the promotional material. There's a sense of the Giganotosaurus is like the Joker to the T Rex's Batman, and I get that they're trying to set up this like they're gonna fight and then they, but I mean the Giganotosaurus to me, first of all, they didn't. We don't know if they had. We don't think they had this. Most likely they gave it that taller sail because they wanted to stand out from the T Rex for like the casual observer. The Giganotosaurus has a cousin in Portugal called Concaminator who has like a hump here and then one here. So there's like precedence in the family to do that, but Giga did not have proof of that. But again, they didn't really give a sense of like, oh yeah, here's this like rivalry. They're just animals, and they yeah, like lions and hyenas have like territorial disputes, but that was like a big to me. I don't know. I guess I understand promotional materials get you to theater, but it was a sense of like this is gonna be a thing, and it's like So anyway, moving forward, so for example, as far as little side notes, they show like the footage from like the release footage of like people driving in the tunnel. There's a Stegosaurus there, and honestly, this is what everyone wanted. I like the islands personally, but many Jurassic people fans were like, hey, let's get them on the mainland, see how that looks. And I will say my highest accoutrement for this series or this movie, two things. One, Dominion is the first movie that did not have hybrids, and I give them a round of applause for that. I despise the hybrids personally because I mean I understand it's because there's so many real like a lot of kids love them. I get why, but there's so many real creatures that are really amazing. And even if you have a real one, you give it weird traits. Like there's still real species we know of, and hybrids are just made up monsters, and that kind of annoys me because if I'm talking about real species to people, and they're like, "But the Indominus," and I'm like, "Yeah, that didn't exist." Like, what do you mean? I'm like, I have to go over the whole thing, and so that's kind of annoying. But this one had no hybrids, so that's kind of cool. But I want to say the thing I love the most about this franchise, this is these guys, Dr. Grant, Dr. Saller, and Dr. Malcolm. And I'm not throwing like shade at Star Wars, but like movies are storytelling, movies are experiences, and for me, I know a movie's good when I go in the movie and I'm like in the movie, I'm sucked into it, and I don't realize I'm in a movie. Like the movie's over and I'm like, I'm in a theater. Like that's a really great experience. And so for me, and also for me, like I know nostalgia's a thing, but for me, like seeing these three on camera together was great. I was excited. I remember Dr. Grant is one of my favorite fictional heroes, and he's the only like my favorite heroes are like Optimus Prime, Captain America, like fictional characters, right? Woody from Toy Story. He's the only one who's like more realistic. That I like. Oh yeah, that guy too. And so seeing him on camera, I remember I was in a theater. My wife, she was looking. I could feel her looking at me, and they showed up to Grant, and he's on a dig. Even though there's real dinosaurs running around, he's still digging for like the real dinosaurs in his mind. And I just smiled. I couldn't stop smiling. And so I think about that with the Star Wars fans who wanted to see Luke, Leia, and Han and together one last time. And I give this franchise like kudos. You did that. You gave us that thing, right? So anyway, move back to the dinosaurs themselves. I like the fact that there's more than one raptor. So just to kind of touch on the top subject, we have Blue and her baby Beta, and the question is, if she's the last Velociraptor? And I think within universe, they didn't say in the movie, but within Nerdverse, they said she has monitor lizard DNA, and therefore she reproduces asexually. And so the idea is that there's many, not many, but there are species of vertebrates, like lizards and stuff, that can reproduce, for example. And I do find pause with oh yeah, she has a monitor lizard, because we do know of a Komodo dragon, and I think in a zoo in Britain, that it did, without any mating, produce eggs, but the eggs were not like viable. So like there's like enough of that, like this kind of happened. You could have easily added any of the other species that actually do this to the DNA strain, because with the Indominus they had all the DNA. But anyway, so Blue was there, Beta was there. Beta I think was just a Baby Yoda attempt, kind of like Baby Groot. Like they're just like, hey, this is really popular, baby cute thing, so we, and it was there, it existed. And so, but I like the fact that there was more than one raptor. So we have the Atrociraptor, which I remind you, paleontology students of the future, that names are important. Now I believe giving names that imply something about the animal, the environment, the features on it. Triceratops means three-horned face. Mudderbursaurus from Mudderbur, Australia. Naming it Atrociraptor, remember they only found this much of the skull in the fossil, and they got in the movie. So there you go. Giving it a cool name, you get that. So Triceratops there now, and Pyroraptor, pyro meaning fire, and I'm not sure if that was like a hidden thing, but it showed it in an ice scene. I don't know, but the idea is that where they found the Pyroraptor's fossil remains, I think the holotype, the first ones found, was in a spot where a forest fire cleared it, and so they found bones, and so those are just like happenstance names, but they're in a movie, so it worked, right? The Velociraptor, of course, they tell you over and over again that these are genetically modified, and that if you, let's see, where is she? If you wait forward, if you have her figure, she has a little thing that you point and point it and it goes after the person. Um, it was just cool to see, like now that frankly, now that Velociraptors are cool, blue, we need another evil raptor, so they pulled the role in really well. I will say the Malta scene, it was a bit too fast. I mean, I love fast. I love Star Wars movie. I love space and ships and stuff, but they were like, it was like, like whoa, And but the thing, it was still a really breathtaking scene. Owen's being chased by the raptors through it was really brilliant, right? It was like a Born Identity movie kind of thing. But anyway, so that was kind of cool to show about the raptors. Again, raptors impact lifestyles really great. I unfortunately dropped my Power Raptor, so no, I'm kidding. And so the Power Raptor going now. I will tell you this: when I first saw it and walking on the ice and it jumps in the water, I was like, "Well, that's dumb." But then I remember, but a friend of mine, George Plato, was like saying, "Hey, think about it: raptors, feathers, there's birds, and water." So again, it was big to me to see a diversity of raptors because people often think that there's only Velociraptor. I've done many videos and talk about this, but the idea is that there's more than one kind of raptor, so that was nice to do that. One thing I like too is that they show the Gallimimus for a second. At this point, they're kind of like played out for the franchise, I think, and they're kind of when Claire's trying to steal the babies or free the babies, they show running around a little bit in the fenced-in area. As far as the ceratopsians go, these guys they're essentially just bulls at this point, and bison, and so they're the Sinoceratops and the Tutuceratops here, and they're like flip over jeeps. What I did like, which is really great, is when they show the baby Nothoceratops, and this guy has the little hornlet kind of nubs here and a smaller frill. That's great because we do know that in looking at the morphology as they age of Ceratops, they're born with very small nubs and everything. They get bigger as they get more mature. That was really great. Um, the part I found the most disturbing, for me at least, was the Malta Dinosaur Fighting Ring Club place. And so people often ask me, "Hey, Jurassic James, do you think dinosaurs should be brought back to life?" And I have a two-part answer because everything with me is complicated. And I said, first of all, no. And I said, but if they do bring them back to life, if that's possible, I would advocate. I want to be a part of it to advocate for them. And what I'm saying is, and this is like my on the soapbox kind of thing, is that you see these dinosaurs are now part of the world and they're instantly being exploited and like fought like dogs and things. And so that's kind of why I don't want dinosaurs brought back to life, because the idea of these creatures, they're animals. My whole career has been like, they're just animals, but people will exploit them and they won't have any say-so. Like, for instance, a dog, your pet dog is domesticated. And the dog's been bred over thousands of years to kind of be codependent on humans. An Asian elephant is not domesticated. It can be tamed, but not domesticated. This animal is just kind of like, okay, I'll work with you. These dinosaurs were a different thing, and the idea of them being in cages and being fit to fight, like that's why I wouldn't want dinosaurs brought back, because people are people. We do horrible things to each other and to other species, and like that's kind of why I know it's a very dark view of it, but it's just I've been around enough people and say, oh yeah, humans kind of like exploit things like a lot, even each other. So much less these beautiful creatures. And so that's why I would say, like, whatever energy you want to do to bring back dinosaurs, use to save modern species, maybe. That being said, there's like the Allosaurus and the Carnotaurus from the cages, and they broke out, and they were kind of walking on the plaza. I like that they didn't just to fight each other when they were in the plaza, because that's what you would assume. Oh, these two carnivores are going to fight each other, but they're free, and they're like there's humans. They're easy prey. Check, how about that? That seems more like what an animal would do in that situation. In some ways. In my opinion. The other one was a baryonyx. They had a baryonyx, and it had a prosthetic arm, implying that it had been fighting and lost its arm. They gave it a fake arm too. So, like, again, hammering my point in. I forgot to mention in the opening sequence, which did make me mad, they showed an iguanodon when they were looking at the Maastrichtian Late Cretaceous time with T-Rex and the Tyrannosaurus and a gigafied T-Rex. And they had an iguanodon there. The reason that's annoying is that iguanodon had been extinct. Like all forms of iguanodon, we believe were extinct by that time. And it doesn't look that far off of a Montosaurus, an animal found in that environment. So when I first saw it, I was like, is that a Montosaurus? And then I was like, no, look at my hands. And of course, the toy has, I this is my one-on video, it has 4 fingers. The one-on had 5 digits, it had 3, the pinky, and like the thumb spike. This one has 2. And so like I get, and I remember Traval was like, he was saying, I think in one of the interviews, he was like, I really want to be accurate in this part, but I'm gonna put animals in to tell a better story. The Montosaurus is bigger than Iguanodon, and Montosaurus to me looks like kind of cooler than Iguanodon in some ways. I mean, I love Iguanodon, but the idea is that like that was like easy. Like, why'd you pick that one? The Parasaurolophus with Owen when he is riding the horses and chasing the Parasaurolophus and he lassos it. I think many people online have already attacked that viciously, as they should. I mean, I encourage you, if you're into paleontology, if you're a kid, go to museums first, but go to the zoos, go to farms, go to ranches, interact with animals, right? Modern animals. And yeah, a horse isn't a dinosaur, but people who take care of animals, you can get a lot of information from that. And I don't think a human, unless he's pretty brawny, a person can hold a horse almost by themselves, much less like a 4-ton hadrosaur. So that was kind of interesting. Maybe say, oh, it was a younger duckbill. It was still pretty big. They're pretty muscular animals. And remember, the giant bones you see in museums are the frame of the animal. There's lots of muscles encased around that, right? So that's kind of that scene was weird. And of course, here's a fun thing: the Parasaurolophus figure that they have has too many fingers. It has 5, and the Iguanodon has too few. So it's almost like they wish to take off one of these fingers and give it to that guy. That's just my 2 cents. One part I did, I'll address this when the plane is crashing, and Claire is there, and woman parachutes there. I realize that I am not pterosaur. I find pterosaurs interesting, but I'm not fond of pterosaurs in movies because they're kind of just jerks. They kind of just fly in, wreck stuff up, and then leave. And it's like, and so, like, if you ever had a friend in your life, they come over, they ruin your house, and they leave. So the idea is that the Quetzalcoatlus, I like that it was so big. I like that it was flying in and territorial and all that. But for it to attack a plane with a propeller, that's kind of a weird, I don't know. But they had checked the Quetzalcoatlus, the Pteranodon at some point, and then of course our little Dimorphodon, these little guys here, which I should do a video on one of these guys by themselves. They're pretty interesting little pterosaurs. There's some new research on their diets actually. But the idea is that the pterosaurs kind of just fly in, wreck stuff, fly away. And I'm like, all right, that's cool, I guess, So I would like to see more pterosaur, Prehistoric Planet has given us all the pterosaurs we can fill pterosaurs, but in Jurassic World they're kind of like just a nuisance, So other thing I want to point out is the Dilophosaurus. A scene I liked a lot is that granted they're still tiny, and the real one's like over 20 feet long. The real one lacked the frill. The real one didn't spit venom. We've been over this before, but I like the idea of it, like hunting Claire, and she's like, and it's like opening your frill, and then Owen just grabs by the throat. sorry. The reason I like that is because, okay, I'll say it this way. In Jurassic Park 1, the dinosaurs are majesty. For you kids, man, I know you see it, everyone's in Jurassic Park. Hopefully if you're watching this video, you're watching this series, you do my channel, I can't explain to you how looking at Jurassic Park and how the dinosaurs, they were just magic. They were just imposing, they were forces of nature, right? And it was almost like you can't really touch them. They're killing you if they can't, And so with this one, it takes it down a peg, I'll give you that, but him just grabbing the throat of it, and if you ever interact with people who like ranchers or farmers, the way they kind of like manhandle animals, it's kind of like that. They're just like, I know for like the bugs in the museum, when I hold them in the butterfly center, I treat them like they are firstborn child baby angels, and I'm very delicately moved and have them walk in here. And so the entomologist would just kind of like grab the bug, like they're used to it, right? And so for me to see him just go like that and stop it, and get out of here, and it's only 4 feet tall, so that was kind of cool. I don't know, I like that a lot actually. It was one of those stupid little moments that stuck out to me. I will mention the Dimetrodon. Like I said, I volunteer at the White House Museum in Seymour, Texas. I've mentioned that before in many videos. Dimetrodon was in the movie. I remember that the night I saw Jurassic World, because I was like, I'll see it like the next day, not the night it comes out, and then I was like, wild hair, see it tonight. My wife said, okay, sure, so we're really late. And I remember when I got the movie, I texted my friends to the White Side, I was like, hey guys, Dimetrodon's in Jurassic World, yay, because that's what their main digging thing is there. They mainly dig Megalodon there, and so that's kind of like a more recognition of what that museum does too. And so they never responded because they're normal people, like they're normal cool people, so they don't. But the idea is that these guys, I in the movie, spoiler, they were in the tunnels, and they were coming out of the walls attacking. In real life, I mean, for one thing, the sails are very, I would say, they're fragile. They wouldn't be probably comfortable climbing around in tunnels. But also, I mean, I get why in the movie verse you have a lot of open dinosaurs, open air. This synapsid here is going to be different, so it's going to be somewhere different. But so anyway, so do you know when they lived in Texas, in North Texas, it was like open plain, and it was like a coast floodplain, so it wouldn't have been like crammed cave structures. But it was cool to see another animal. Like I said, I need to watch it again probably, but the behavior was like, But overall, it was cool to see it because people know this animal. Like, I mean, I have never did a lecture, tour, talk, interview, anything where I mentioned Dimitrodon, and they're like, "What?" They may not know the name, but if I describe it, they're like, "Oh yeah, that thing." And so that's why my first video was Dimitrodon. So, they're interesting animals, and to see one in Jurassic World was really cool. Finally, they had toys of these guys since the beginning, actually. High point, and I did this in my video on Lystrosaurus. Lystrosaurus was in the movie, and if you remember correctly, it was one of the Fight Club animals, and then the Oviraptor ran over to it, and it bit its head off, and the Oviraptor ran around like a chicken with its head cut off, which was brutal scene, but it was kind of like, neat. I get that. These guys are herbivores; they are not carnivores. I mean, but I like what I love the most is that people looking at it, even my wife, who's not a paleontologist, that's different. What is that thing? It's not a dinosaur. Good. You saw that. Yeah. So it's like the arms up to the side, it's a synapsid, right? And so, so that was really cool for me. I like that a lot. And like I said, I get excited about Lystrosaurus because it survived the Permian extinction of the genus, and I call them pug ugly because if you look closely at this face, is pug ugly. And I remember when I would do tours in the Paleo Hall, I mentioned the Permian, and I would say how like these guys. I mean, the Permian, the synapsids, the thorapsids, sorry, particularly, these guys are, by today's standards, are very ugly. They're not like a horse or a deer, they have these weird tusks and beaks, and if they're crawling, And I remember I once had a tour, and I said it was a very ugly time in history, and everyone laughed. And I was like, I wasn't trying to be funny. I just was like, and I say ugly is relative because we are used to deer, horses, and lions and cats. If we were used to this and we see lions, we're like, that's a weird looking thing, it's a perspective thing. But I liked that was there. And of course, the Compsognathids, these guys who were always little background characters running around. Funny how they were so deadly in the beginning, and then now they're kind of just not. They showed a girl at the end playing with the Moros, Intrepidus. And again, it was way too small in the movie. It was way, like, the bones found, I had a video already on this if you want to see that, but the bones on the animal suggest it was a fully adult. And so, but even then, the specimen estimated size was bigger than what they showed in the movie. So just know that. And finally, I think Mosasaur. Oh, these two. So first of all, I'll just go to Therizinosaurus. So I know this guy was a standout breakthrough kind of thing. I already did a video on Therizinosaurus before I bought the figure, so I didn't do a video reviewing this particular figure. Point out Therizinosaurus. We don't have the skulls. So the heads, I mean, it's based on other members of his family, which I mentioned in the Therizinosaurus video. But the large claws are what stuck out to people. The fact that it was hunting Claire, but not hunting Claire. The idea was they are thought to be herbivores as a group, and the one in the movie was blind, which is why I could, or visually impaired, which is why I couldn't see her, but it's why I smell and sense her. And so them showing the deer feeding and it killing it, the idea was it's fighting competition. And one thing to point out here, my example I use is African savanna, how the wildebeest have very low and wide mouths, zebras have more rounded off snouts, gazelles have very narrow, like this. So they're all herbivores, they're eating different plants for the most part, or close to it. And so they're not competing, whereas a lion, a leopard, a cheetah, a civet, they're all eating meat, so they're competing with each other. So with this guy, they seem to be taking the idea that, it's fighting off, or the herbivores who are competition. And of course it would kill the deer, and then the T-Rex scavenged it, and so the Dinosaur stole a meal. And what I like about that scene, I mean, obviously the T-Rex like bagging down that easily. That's kind of annoying, but in animal behavior we see sometimes not, in Discovery Channel, kids. A long time ago, in a century far away, I'm both born in the 1900s. the Discovery Channel used to show animals and stuff. Now it's like they fix cars and other things. But back then, and so they would see animal behavior. And when I was a kid, I would watch documentaries on dinosaurs, I'd read books, and I watched Discovery Channel, and I see how the animals interacted. And when I would play in my backyard, I would make sure to kind of like graph some of those concepts over to my figures, right? And so there's this image in our minds of all these predators just running and attacking each other. And the truth is, yeah, you'll see that footage, but you don't know that the people were recording several hours of nothing, of the lions laying around, the wildebeest hanging out, and nothing happening. And them being side by side to each other, and no conflict, maybe tension, and then an attack happens, they film it real quick, and that's the focus, right? So the idea of the Giganosaurus walking over to the T-Rex as two large predators, one being slightly larger in the movie, and stealing its prey, that's not out of the question. Many animals don't want to fight, per se, because if you fight, you would run the risk of getting injured. And if you get injured, you can die faster. Infection or scavenging or other predators can take you out. So the idea is that if you see something clearly bigger than you, you just back away. And it's like that. There's like, you know, all those like memes on, you know, videos on Instagram where people see a crocodile and they're like, ah, and the crocodile goes away. It's like, well, yeah, if an animal feels you too much of a, I mean, that's not universal, individual animals, but many animals feel if you were too much of a threat or a problem for them, they'd rather just not bother you because they don't want to risk injury, right? So that makes sense in that area. I will point out the Mosasaur was actually, and Mosasaurus itself, the animal itself, really cool animal in its own right. Mosasaurs are a group, right? And the genre, I haven't done a Mosasaur video, have I? Yeah, I should do a Mosasaur video. Anyway, the genre are worldwide, right? And so our Mosasaur, the Jurassic World one, is obviously the biggest predator in the world. And so they're being free, it's hunting like surfers and stuff. And remember, holding the sharks over the water and it's jumping out, that's a learned behavior. So it's learning to, which is why in part 2 or part 5, the helicopter's flying over this tank and it goes up and gets the guy, right? Because it's used to that feeding behavior. The idea that it can go that long without food is also kind of cool because it is a reptile. And reptiles they're known for going long times without food. But what I like the most about the Mosasaur story is that in the very end, finish the sentence, James. So they show the humpback whale swimming, and then this is a Papo, which I love, not Papo, is it Schley or Schley? There is no name. Oh, Papo, yeah, Papo. I love giant whale. I love, baleen whales. And so, if you don't know, baleen whales evolved before Megalodon, but Megalodon shows up, and they change their behavior. So, like, we think today that many baleen whales still go far north to give birth because they're used to, like, running from megalodons, even though they're extinct. And so to show the whale there, and whales are kind of swimming around it, I like that because, again, it reinforced the idea that not every time two animals see each other, there's a fight or a dash. And so, there's a sense of it can cohabitate. Now, would the Mosasaur eat a whale? Definitely, if it could, if it was hungry. But that was a kind of cool thing because one of my missions, of course, and all I do, is to kind of show that these aren't monsters. These are animals. And the same way animals today eat, sleep, and poop and make more of themselves, these guys did the same thing. And so that's why I like that part a lot. As far as the story of the movie itself goes, I'll say this. I understand they were mixing two, like there was the old crew from the first movies and this crew. I will tell you this, once I said the word Jurassic Park on a tour, and the little boy goes, "Oh, no, sir, it's Jurassic World." And I, without thinking, said, "Oh, no, son, it's Jurassic Park. That's the original trilogy." And the parents were like, "Oh, yeah," kind of thing. But I will say my biggest complaint about the franchise is that the movie was that they did, the locusts were a big deal. And what I'm saying is, it's okay, I'll say it this way. In Jurassic Park 1, the dinosaurs were on camera for like 15 minutes, right? And, I mean, if you count all the actual dinosaur actions, 15 minutes. But the entire time the dinosaurs aren't on camera, they're talking about them. So, for example, the T-Rex, I mean, first of all, Spielberg is a horror movie writer, let's just say that. And he, the Brachiosaurus, how fast is it? Oh, the T-Rex talked about 30 miles per hour. Oh, the T-Rex, And then they mention this, some other point they mention it again. And then, they go buy the pen, and they're looking for it, it doesn't show up. And then by the time it's ready to show up, you're like already like T-Rex charge, you're right, it's coming, and then you're boom with the footprints, and then it kind of shows up slowly. Like it's leading you towards that. You're constantly, it's on your mind, right? The Velociraptors are introduced, the shaky bush thing they're feeding by the cow. there's a sense of when they're not with dinosaurs, they're talking about the dinosaurs. And what Jurassic World Dominion felt like to me was kind of like the Transformers movies, Michael Bay version, how they're the Transformers aren't in a movie a lot, and people it's the subject title is Transformers, and you see very little Transformers. It's like, well, why do we have like five people in an office room talking to each other and forwarding the plot when we can have those the real? I understand the animation's expensive and all the different things, but we can have the Transformers talking to each other, doing the plot. We don't need a human hacker. We have Transformers who can go into computers and do their thing, right? So with this movie, I felt the same way. Like the franchise of Jurassic World, the first one was like, hey, the island's working, and it fails. And then two was like, let's get them off the island, and three is like, they're on the mainland. And it's kind of like they got to that point, and it was like, oh yeah, but this locust problem. And even then, I was like, couldn't the dinosaurs just be eating certain crops? Spoiler, the locusts were bred by a certain company, a biosin, and were eating crops from companies who did not take crops from biosin. So it's like a marketing food supply. Like, it was a secret, like, corporate thing, espionage thing going on, which I get, that's cool, but when I bought a ticket for Jurassic World Dominion, my first thought was we'd see more dinosaur action, activity, dinosaur concerns, like how they integrating in the world around them, how the environment, and at the end they did it with most of the story, and then on the other end, they're like, oh yeah, we could live together, but I felt the movie should have been more of that the whole time, this sense of this new group of species are introduced to ecologies and how that affects it. And if you talk to any zoologist or any biologist who knows these things, it's really concerning when you introduce or take out one or two animals. It alters the stuff, alters everything. And here's a chance to kind of show that, and then showcase dinosaurs. And they're like, but these locusts, these giant locusts, and it's like, okay. And so I personally believe in you can protest with your wallet, and obviously look around. There's a toy dollar over there, but any of the little packs that have the locust, I don't buy them. I just one because they'll put like an older Dr. Malcolm, like older Malcolm, a locust, two locusts, and like a raptor. It's like I already had that raptor like 45 times. So, but it's just like to me, it's like that was why. Like you could have made all the things the locusts did, you could have had the dinosaurs do, and that was the whole point of this franchise. And so I know they said it's the last one, but Hollywood. But it's one of those things where like there's all this extra stuff in it, and it's like, well, wait a minute. And I use the Transformers as an example because I'll watch the clips of Transformers, like fight scenes and interactions and stuff, and then I'll sit down and watch the movie again and go like, oh, all this stuff happened between all that, And it's like with the Jurassic World movie, like I said, since childhood, literally watched Jurassic Park thousands of times. I know every beat of that soundtrack. I know every scene, every image, every angle. I've studied that movie to its umpteenth degree. And for me to see Jurassic Park 6, Jurassic World 3, and to not see it again, I have not looked at it again since I saw it last year. I saw it once ago. Okay, got it. That, to me, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, that kind of speaks a lot. It's like, okay, you didn't want to see it one more time, And I will say, another thing is that they put the dinosaurs in an enclosure at the end. And so, sorry. The reason I say this is that the whole point is that they're not on an island anymore, not enclosed in the world, and they end up going to another enclosure, and it's like, well, what are we doing here, guys? Come on, like that's the whole point, And so for me, that was kind of like weird that they did that. But I will say this in closing: I don't like, despite what you just saw, I don't like critiquing movies harshly because to make a movie, there's so many moving parts, and it's so easy for someone to see a done product and go, why did you do it that way? I mean, I watch my own videos and go like, oh, that was awful, So I get that a lot of people worked on this, and I commend them. I'm very grateful because I mean it's great, we need more dinosaur movies, right? But the thing for me is that when you can make almost anything, the fans have made it kind of clear what they want. And I'll say this too, I don't want to go to a movie and see what I expected to see entirely. I like the idea of seeing something different and new, but more on the lines of like, wow me, like there's sometimes I'll see a movie and go like, oh, I didn't think that would happen, and so for me, I mean, yeah, they did that, but I just again, thought there would be more of a dinosaurian focus, and it really kind of wasn't in some ways. But they were there constantly, and they could story their character. I get that, but it's just that's kind of what my takeaway was. But I hope and pray they make more Jurassic World movies. Most likely, in Hollywood, they're going to wait like a decade or 5 years and go, hey, you know what? Let's do it again. And so that's probably inevitable. But for me, I think that looking at what happened here was really interesting in the movie, and this is kind of I just want I guess answering Miss Mimi's request, my subscriber. This is kind of my take on what happened in the movie, what it means. I could talk about more detail, but you know that I don't want to talk. I've already talked long enough at this point. And so, if there's anything I missed that you want to have questions about, put it in the comments below, and I will either do a video on that subject if you can elaborate, or two, I'll do a video on a different species and just kind of tell that story too. I'm not sure if this is what she was actually requesting, but this is again the 30 dinosaurs that were in the movie. Here they are. Oh, the final. Wow, sorry, the Patasaurus in the snow. About that, I've had questions. People will find me on social media at Jurassic James 65 on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Buy another one. And so someone asked me about the Apatosaurus in the snow. Now, when Apatosaurus lived in the Morrison Formation in late Jurassic, 150 million years ago, there was like no snow, right? But if dinosaurs are warm-blooded, or at least an animal that size can be homeostasis, can be how they kept certain, it wouldn't be out of the question for it to be in a colder environment. We have found tyrannosaurs and raptors, dromaeosaurs, ceratopsians in colder environments. Not sure how they were often thought to be feathered. I'm not sure how a sauropod would fare, but it wouldn't be out of the question for that to happen. So it wouldn't like it's not like they're not iguanas that they're put in the cold environment. They just kind of sit in one spot. They would be able to move out the area. And I do like the idea of sauropods being like these giant kind of cow things. That was kind of neat. Anyway, with that being said, I hope this is what everyone was interested in, or you found interesting. Next week, we're going to go back to the toy review thing, and I think I'm doing Elaphosaurus, a new one that came out in a different Jurassic line, and we're going to see with that animal, we're going to see the Tundra formation in Tanzania, Africa, like Jurassic. That being said, thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. See you guys later.